Speaking in Miami today, the president strenuously defended his use of tariffs to address ongoing emergencies, such as the fentanyl crisis and the trade deficit.
This is the golden age. My tariffs are bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars and are helping slash the deficit this year by more than 50%. Did you see the numbers? We're going to be down 50%. Who would think that one? Those are big numbers.
And the tariff money has not only been pouring in by the hundreds of billions, it's brought key countries to the table like England, Japan, China, and the EU, all eager to negotiate new trade deals. Deals that Trump insists are going to be fairer to American workers and American industry. So it's no surprise that there were a lot of big Trump administration officials at the court today to hear oral arguments in the case challenging the president's tariffs that were imposed under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, otherwise known as IEEPA. Now, it's always risky to predict where the court is going to come down in any given case. Remember, I clerked there many years ago. But the justices seem somewhat skeptical that the president has such broad unilateral authority to impose these tariffs.
So is it your contention that every country needed to be tariffed because of threats to the defense and industrial base? I mean, Spain, France.
Could the president impose a 50% tariff on gas-powered cars and auto parts to deal with the unusual and extraordinary threat from abroad of climate change?
It's very likely that could be done.
Here to discuss is U.S. Trade Rep Jamieson Greer, who was in court today. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. So the press seems to, indicate that the court is inclined to at least limit the president's authority here. But it all comes down to what the power to regulate imports consists of, correct? Whether it consists of the tariff, tariff ability, whether that's part of the definition.
That's right. The court was grappling with that language, and I think generally speaking, both the justices and even the litigants, everyone agreed that this appeared to be quite a broad grant of authority. The term regulate can incorporate quite a bit. And so when you hear the questions from the justices, some people say they're skeptical. I mean, their job is to ask questions, right? And I would say they were tough on the government, but I think they were tougher on the plaintiffs on this issue because the term regulate is so broad, and the quintessential way of regulating imports is through a tariff.
The Chief Justice challenged the word regulate into this conversation, that the administration is applying the specific definition to include tariffs. Watch this.
The statute doesn't use the word tariffs.
But it uses the word regulate importation. And historically, a core central application of that, a big piece of that, has always been to tariff.
Now, Mr. Ambassador, do you believe that given the fact that the Constitution does use the word levies, right? It does know how to use the word levies. The word tariffs does have its own unique definition, that still the justices will be inclined to say, okay, let's give the president that plenary authority here?
Well, when they were speaking and asking questions, and I think a lot of their questions were quite fair. Again, that's their job to do this. And everyone acknowledged the great breadth of the language that was used. When you look at the statute at question, IEEPA we call it for short, there are many different verbs, a bunch of nouns. There are dozens of formulations. One of them is regulate importations. There's another case, several years ago, construing the term adjust importations, and the court found 9-0 that included a tariff. So there's positive precedent on this very issue.
There was a moment where Amy Coney Barrett seemed to be concerned about the practical implications of what paying back this money would look like. And she referred to it in her question as to Neil Katyal, who is arguing the other side, as a potential mess. What did that tell you?
Well, it's interesting because I don't think that's necessarily a factor in what regulating importation means, but I think it is a factor when you're looking at the underlying policy, in that what the president has done with this statute is he's used it quite effectively to reset our trade relationships, bring reciprocity and balance, and strike trade deals that make a difference for American producers and workers. And undoing all of that, including the potential remittance of funds to people who deposited them, that's unwinding a huge thing. That's undoing some of the key and critical achievements of this administration. And so I think she was acknowledging the significance of that.
Now, the other issue that kept coming up, and I listened to the entire argument, 2.5 hours long, believe me, it was a long one today, but it just shows you how important this case is what the implication will be if this case doesn't go the way President Trump wants. What will ultimately happen for the American people and for our fiscal standing?
Well, if it doesn't go the way President Trump wants, he loses a lot of the flexibility that we believe Congress granted him to deal with these emergencies we're facing, right, of the trade deficit, the loss of manufacturing, et cetera. And then what's next? Well, then, as Justice Barrett pointed out, there's the question of the funds. I think some of that is an open question. And so the Treasury Department will have to, figure out what that means, and there might even be more litigation on that point. And then, of course, tariffs are going to be part of the policy landscape, and the justices all signaled, a lot of additional authorities there are out there. We continue to be confident in this case, but believe me, tariffs will be a part of the policy landscape going forward.
Everyone who watches this show knows how much I love tariffs. So we have a number of different investigations that can be done that were done in Trump 1. I don't believe any of those tariffs in the first Trump administration were successfully challenged in court. So there are various investigations that can be done. You can apply tariffs that are really onerous for other countries, but that takes time. And what President Trump wants to do is reindustrialize the United States and address these various emergencies. So. I cannot wait to see what the court does here. I have no idea, but it seemed pretty testy in there. Mr. Ambassador, great to see you. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.